Hey everybody, it's Kelly from Dork Tales, and I am doing something different today. Today I am going to be ranking my favorite Chronicles of Darkness games and maybe telling a few stories here. I was challenged to do this by Awkward GM Corbin, who's a friend of mine from like the World of Darkness boards, and as far as I understand, there are a couple of other channels that are doing it too. So let's do it. So today we are going to be going over the World of Darkness game lines of the Chronicles of Darkness game lines. I'm going to be explaining them a little. This is going to be just kind of a hot take, okay? So hopefully you'll enjoy this, and if not, I don't know. All right, so I've got my suitably World of Darkness background, Chronicles of Darkness background. I've got my tier list here. So what we have here are all of the World of Darkness game lines, which are now known as Chronicles of Darkness. Quick story there. There are two Worlds of Darkness, technically. There's the World of Darkness that started with Vampire the Masquerade, among another couple of games that I'm not going to get into the super deep history of it. But that game line ran until the early 2000s when they ended the world and decided to reboot it with a new system and kind of like a new metaverse. Inside of that alternate game line, it's more like an alternate universe than anything. They took a lot of the old properties like Vampire the Masquerade and rebooted them as things like Vampire the Requiem, which we actually play on Dork Tales. We've played Vampire the Masquerade here as well, but I'll get into my opinions between the two game lines later. When White Wolf, the company that did all of the publishing for these, were bought out in the 2010s. They eventually fell into the hands of CCP, the guys who did EVE Online, and eventually found their ways to Paradox Interactive. Throughout this, a company called Onyx Path was created. Onyx Path was made by some of the former White Wolf writers, along with, led by Rich Thomas, who was, I believe, the art director at the time. And he is the one who's still running Onyx Path, and they're putting out fantastic materials. But when they took over the license, it was a licensing deal. So they had very little creative control without the rubber stamp from the powers that be that actually owned the license. And one of the things that they wanted to do around the time that my timeline may not be 100%, but when Vampire 5th edition was in production, they decided, I believe the quote was, "If we don't have a Vampire the Masquerade Netflix show by 2020, we're failing." Obviously, this is the pandemic kind of probably caused some problems there. Tons of video games coming out though, and so the rights holders told Onyx Path that, hey, you can't be World of Darkness and New World of Darkness, which is kind of how it was, kind of like the new Coke. We need you to rebrand. So they changed all of their game lines to Chronicles of Darkness. So if I accidentally say World of Darkness in this context, I mean Chronicles of Darkness. I have the World of Darkness rulebook for this second version of the World of Darkness. So like, I'm old hat. Okay, so just be like, okay, boomer, and move on if I mess up. Okay, so let's go through these game lines and talk about what I think of them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into how I feel about them, as well as how I think they've evolved over time. So first of all, we're going to start with the blue skull on the left. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be tagging them according to favorite, like, okay, dislike, hate. So blue is mortals. So if you are playing a mortal character kind of existing in the World of Darkness as a whole, the blue skull represents you. Okay, that's the standard issue game book. And I'm going to give two tiers on this. So first of all, I didn't love it when it first came out. I actually picked up the World of Darkness and Vampire the Requiem rule books on release night. I was back in the States visiting my mom, and I was actually a few cities over at the nearest mall visiting some friends, and they had a Vampire the Requiem and Chronicles of Darkness release party at a gaming store there. I actually went to it. There was a lottery to win like an Assamite kukri. It was very 2002, 2003. I forget the exact year. It was weird. I actually went back. I was staying at a friend's house. Went back, read the books, and ran a Vampire the Requiem game the next day. That some of the people in our Discord actually played in. Now, however, Chronicles of Darkness game line has evolved significantly over time. So while I originally didn't like the idea of just playing mortals and had a bit of trouble just kind of getting into the mindset after spending so much time playing games like Vampire the Masquerade, when Chronicles of Darkness came out with a second edition, and started releasing books like the God Machine Chronicle, which later became Chronicles of Darkness. Their introduction for mortals struggling against powers that they could not comprehend, and this creature called the God Machine, which basically is like you take Skynet and you mix it with like a demiurge, like a nearly omnipotent, omniscient creature, god technically. So basically like a false god that controls reality through the Matrix, more or less, more like an evil system admin for Earth. That became amazing. And that's why I'm going to move that straight up from dislike to like. When we are talking about second edition, there is a distinct jump in quality. If I were just talking about the God Machine Chronicle itself, I would actually jump it up to favorite. But we're not. Okay, so Vampire the Requiem. I am going to have to be honest here. It's okay. That's it. Vampire the Requiem first edition was good, but it was... I mean... Chronicles of Darkness follows this system where it's all 5 clans, 5 covenants, so 5 types of what you are, 5 organizations. Like for the most of its background, they did that, and then if you wanted to specialize, so say you were a member of a clan, the Clan Ventrue, you could then specialize into a sub-clan called a bloodline. Now, those of you who have followed the channel know that I have written tons of these for Storyteller's Vault, along with my buddies over at None More Dark Publishing. You should go get those books. Links in the description. I do not love the way they did this in First Ed. It was clunky. They were still finding their footing, and they were trying to figure out how far they were going to get from Vampire the Masquerade to Vampire the Requiem. That said, Vampire the Requiem in tone and in the way that vampires function is distinct from Vampire the Masquerade in such a way that I think it's actually, I prefer the flavor. And that's honestly what we're talking about here. So Vampire the Masquerade is that you are all vampires who were drained of blood and fed the blood of a vampire that traces its lineage back to Cain, the first murderer, who God cursed with vampirism, and who, through a fluke and running off with his father's ex-girlfriend, ended up with phenomenal cosmic power and basically became an undead superhero who only used his powers to be a bad dad. So basically became biblical Omni-Man. Okay? And then he went out and got a pack of cigarettes, and vampires never saw him again, but then they all killed each other. It's way more complicated than that. Maybe I'll make a video. Ask if you want a humorous guide to Vampire the Masquerade or White Wolf lore below. So the entire thing about being a vampire in Vampire the Masquerade is that you're a corpse. You are a corpse that is animated by the blood of Cain. It's hard written into most of the books that you feel nothing but hunger. Any emotions you have are usually negative. You can't fall in love, really. I mean, sometimes they write it in, but any type of sexual contact is always not really something that is enticing or appealing. Like the sexy vampire is not there. In Vampire the Requiem, nobody knows why you're a vampire. It's a mystery. I think this is where they lost a lot of people, because they cut the meta plot out completely, and a lot of people were buying the old World of Darkness books to be able to follow the meta plot like a soap opera. I know I was. The moment that I found out what Solot's deal was in some like 3-layer deep supplement, I was up at 2 a.m. like studying that back when I was in college. It was awesome. I don't remember what I was taking that term, but I remember sitting in my dorm finding out that's what Solot was up to, and that was awesome. But with the new books, you didn't really have that. You had little snippets of like self-contained lore, short stories, and some pretty cool art direction, really, but that was all that you got in terms of world building, because what they wanted to do is that Vampire the Masquerade was like this global thing, like vampires controlled everything everywhere, and they wanted to put it down to a personal level. And I don't disagree with that in principle, actually. The idea of going from a globe-spanning game, which I've ran plenty of, to a city-based campaign where you are focused on, what happens in Chicago or LA or Pittsburgh or Montreal or, Kelowna, BC, like where there are 4 vampires. Like what do you have to do to protect your own? What local threats there are? That leads for way more personalized stakes. not nearly as like, globe-trottingly cool, but it's different flavors, really. What I liked about Vampire the Requiem first edition was that the vampires were a little unique. They were all about basically being ghosts in many ways. Every emotion they had, everything they experienced was the shadow of a emotion that they had once had. At least it was in some of the books. They also gained some of their old vampiric flaws back, like they didn't show up in mirrors or photographs unless they wanted to. They were all blurred out like in The Ring, which was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I actually played a few years of Vampire the Requiem as a LARP. I've done tabletop and live action play of both Masquerade and Requiem. I think that Requiem was a bit more fun. And I think that's because I think it was the game more than anything. My friend Bastion was running that, and it was a lot more spending time with people who kind of get you. The Masquerade games were often like open door invite, and that's not always the best for long running games. You can get some toxicity and some strange variables in those games. So I'm gonna put first edition as an okay. Then a new developer picked it up and started running it through the paces in second ed. Second ed completely changed everything. Now the difference between first edition Chronicles and second edition Chronicles, or first edition World and first edition Chronicles, technically, if we really want to split hairs in the comments, completely changed everything. Moved to a condition system, so that in Old World of Darkness, if something happened to you, you had to trust your players, or you had to trust your storyteller, or you had to trust each other to roleplay it. For example, if I used a fear-inducing power on your character, there were a lot of times where I would play with people who would be like, it doesn't affect me, or they would they kind of lean into it just enough to be like, well, I was scared, I hesitated before I shot you 15 times, right? Like, it would be really weird. And it would be that type of power gaming mentality that would be very pervasive with certain people you were playing with. And I think part of that was the people I was playing with, but part of that is that there were no real guidelines or incentives to play the character aside from personal satisfaction, which a lot of us theater style people really like. But people who are trying to play a game and are trying to have fun might not like that as much. It kind of de-gamified a lot of things. And then second edition came along and re-gamified it by saying that, cool, you have a bad thing happen to you, you gain experiences from it. You gain something called a beat, which every 5 beats is a point of experience. And in second edition, they went from having a multiplier table, where it was like, yes, you want a new point of strength. You are buying your third dot of strength. Great. Then that is 4 times 3 squared to the power. It was always a multiplication table. In this, it's like, cool, spend 4 experiences, which is 20 beats, but it feels cooler. It's a little shift. And also, you can pick up multiple beats in a scene. If, for example, you have a power that affects you, and then you resolve that power, you gain a beat, usually. If you roll a failure once per scene, you may choose to make that a botch. It's called a dramatic failure, and that's fantastic. If you make a dramatic failure anyway, you still get a beat, but I'm pretty sure you do. Do you still get one? I think I still give them if you dramatically fail. I don't remember if that's core or not. But botching is fun. Botching is not as fun as getting like an exceptional success or a critical. Same difference in this system. But it's fun. And I think that anybody says that botching, I think that like your third botch of the night is a bad botch, but I think that your first botch of the night is fun. If your storyteller or dungeon master or whatever is good at what they do, it's fun. So I will say that Requiem got better in second edition. The clans got more boiled down to what they really were, which is each one of the 5 types of vampire was all about like what flavor of literary vampire, like the savage vampire, the sexy vampire, the controlling lord on the castle, like the Dracula style, right? And then things like the shadowy vampire, right? They really boiled it down, and the bloodlines became a little more easy to access, and it became much more about flavor. They also kind of took the organizations inside of it, revamped them a bit, so that they weren't quite as weird. Like in the first edition, they didn't quite make sense yet. Like they were like, oh, we want Catholic vampires, we want pagan vampires, we want alchemist, old school Victorian mystics who follow Dracula and do experiments on themselves, and then like we want the Camarilla back from the Invictus, are just the Camarilla reborn basically, and we want the Anarchs from Masquerade to have their own thing, and we'll just call them the Carthians because we're being they were in first edition, they were so busy referencing Masquerade to draw people over, they kind of missed the mark on a lot of things, it feels like, and no shame, because the Herculean task of trying to convince everybody to follow you, not only to a new edition but to a new entire meta, is just impossible, and they did the best they could and deserve respect. But Rose Bailey taking the lead as developer for Requiem second edition is gonna bump that up a step. If I liked vampires more, and if I like the way that vampire structurally played as a game more, I would put it as a favorite. I think that mechanically and in terms of tone and quality, it is phenomenal. And if you like vampires, give Vampire the Requiem second edition a try. I've seen a lot of hate for Vampire the Requiem, particularly from people who were really big into Vampire the Masquerade, Revised, or V20, or even V5. And my first question to them is always, have you played second edition Requiem? And they're always like, no, I stopped after first. It's like, well, but you like 5th edition Masquerade. Oh yeah, I love 5th edition Masquerade. Do you like all these new mechanics that are in 5th edition Masquerade? Oh yeah, they're great. Cool. A lot of those were just cherry-picked from Requiem 2nd edition when they were developing 5th edition. Like, there's a direct core. Go look. There's a lot there. The only mechanic that is a big change in Masquerade 5th edition is the blood dice. Like, the blood dice is a really smart innovation that I sometimes to put my head up against, but I really like it conceptually. That I think that is very unique to the system. But a lot of the other stuff is just like tweaked versions of what they're using in Requiem 2nd. So that's just me. Okay, so let's go through this list some more. So Werewolf the Forsaken. You're playing a werewolf. You're spirit cops. Well, you can go watch our 2 seasons of The Bitches of Brewery Park if you want. So initially, Werewolf First Edition, it was pretty good. I liked it. I actually used to really dislike Werewolf. Werewolf was the first game that I ever ran. I ran 2 episodes of a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, maybe 1 actually. And it was all right. That was back in Old World. So I was all I really had experienced about Werewolf the Apocalypse was that there were these giant hulking brutes that were not really werewolves in the way, like in the Incredible Hulk werewolf, you know, the I'm losing control of myself, right, type of werewolf, which is what I love. They were always my favorite movie monster growing up. I would get these, this is a weird story, but I would get these books from the library when I was living overseas in Europe, and like the school library would have like monsters of the movies books and things like that, with like the Bela Lugosi Dracula and the Wolfman, and I would just reread them constantly because I was destined to be a Chronicles of Darkness gamer. But I would continuously just read and reread like the Wolfman section because I loved the idea of a Wolfman so much. I'm also a big fan of dogs in real life, so that's probably why. But that Incredible Hulk, I'm losing control of myself thing, like, while it did happen in Apocalypse, it was kind of like it was there, but it wasn't really the main focus. The main focus was that you were like fighting for Gaia. It was Captain Planet with werewolves, kind of. And that's really dismissive. I'm sorry. Get enough vampires killed by werewolves, you'll feel the same way. But it was a much different game, and I didn't really love it. So when they were starting developing and releasing info on Werewolf the Forsaken, I was a little skeptical. And then I started looking at the art, and I started looking at how they took the mythology, and instead of being like, oh yes, Mother Earth made you, the new mythology in Werewolf the Forsaken was all once upon a time, the world was all spirits, and humans and other creatures of the flesh were kind of mixed into the same world, and it was this very pre-human, pre-history, pre-dominance of the flesh universe. And in that, this predator spirit, Father Wolf, the spirit the greatest predator spirit, and Mother Luna, the spirit of the moon, fell in love and had a bunch of kids. And you are playing the eventual genetic descendants of those spirit babies, spirit flesh babies, who eventually, when Father Wolf got old, they rose up and killed him, which did a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of mythology, but violated the order of the universe. And with his death howl, he split the worlds apart. So now there's the world of spirit, the world of flesh, and they're kind of like connected by like this little Venn diagram bit. And you're playing werewolves who are forsaken for their original sin, who must go and do what they can to prevent spirits from going over and like humans from going over, and these plots to destroy the world. And they're the werewolves who are very much evil werewolves, like you see in all the movies, called the Pure. And there's even other eviler werewolves. But you're basically spirit cops. And it can be a lot of fun. It was a really fun game. I was very surprised how much I liked it. I'd ran a few games. I'd played a few games of it. And honestly, I would put it like, if there first edition, if there was like a place between okay and like, I'd put that there. I one of my favorite LARP characters actually was a Werewolf the Forsaken werewolf. He was like the reluctant werewolf archetype, but it still wasn't quite there. Then they did second edition, and second edition is actually going to end up being my first favorite on the list. It's small things, but in second edition, they took your ability to control your death rage, your Karuth, the werewolf frenzy in the movies, like the I'm losing control like type of thing, and they cranked it up to 11. They made werewolves scary. There was a lot of pushback because Werewolf the Apocalypse werewolves are tough. It is a very combat intensive game, and the characters are incredibly tough. And they were not nearly as tough. Like, you healed really quickly in first edition. And then in second edition, they just threw the book out the window, and they're like, cool, if you're a werewolf and you get hurt while you are in your werewolf form, unless it's silver or maybe magical damage of some kind, it heals at the beginning of your turn every round until you're dead. So if you get like a bomb dropped on you, that might kill you. For those of you who are old enough to have seen it, I always reference in my head Monster Squad when I think of werewolves. There is a scene in the movie where a werewolf gets blown up. This is a kid's movie, and there are chunks of him everywhere. And they slowly start to go back together like he's the T-1000 because the curse is too strong. I love that. I love that whole angle of being this unstoppable monster who doesn't necessarily want to be an unstoppable monster and really wishes you would stop him before he did something wrong. I think that is a really cool angle for a character, and it's fun. They also cleaned up a bunch of the stuff involving like the powers, and just the overhaul they did with second edition is just enough to jump it up to one of my favorites. The book is a little confusing to me. I think the layout's a little jumbly at times, but god damn, it's a good game. So now let's go to Mage the Awakening. Now, I know Occultist Anonymous is going to be doing one of these, and I'm sorry, guys, but like my first edition Mage the Awakening, I'm a Mage the Ascension fan. I am going to be, until the day I die, Mage the Ascension is my game. I've ran that game for most of my adult life. I'm not going to say the number because it's terrifyingly large at this point. I've ran it as a LARP for more than 10 years. Like, I love this game. And then Awakening comes out, and instead of being about like these people struggling with their visions of reality to kind of change the universe and to, you know, to fight the good fight, to make the world magical and to give freedom back to people, it was like, hey, you're Harry Dresden from the Dresden Chronicles. Atlantis is real, and all magic comes from dragon bones. And you're like, what? It was not a great game. It was all about humanity used to be special. Now we're not special, but some of us are a little special. And can steal magic that we're given by dragons. And it really did not feel like it knew what it wanted to do. They took the magic system and they cookie cuttered it down to the point where in Mage the Ascension, the magic system can be a little archaic in a couple of places. Prime and Entropy, for example. But once you get it, you get it. they saw this as a problem, and with Ascension, that's what it was. With Awakening, they kind of cookie guttered it so that every arcana, as they're called now, the realms of magic, are fairly much the same. Fairly much the same. I didn't like Mage the Awakening first edition. And then second edition came out, and I actually like it. They threw Atlantis out the window, and they did this whole thing where there are basically layers of reality, and at the platonic layer, like the highest layer of reality called the supernal realm, people normally can't go there. And if you can go there, you become a god. But with great power comes great responsibility, and if you change anything about the lower world, you change everything about the lower world. So if you, for example, are like, oh, I really wish that I had gotten a puppy, or I really wish that guy got a puppy for his birthday instead of a cat. All of reality shifts one step to the left, which means that the previous reality gets completely overwritten, and everything is different. But that doesn't mean that it's gone. People might have remnant memories. You have dreams. You have flashbacks, hallucinations. You can go try to build a pool in Nebraska in your backyard and dig up Roman ruins, or, there could be future tech from the nation of Zulu that is equivalent to like the 24th century that you find in Australia for some reason. Like, it is cool. They made the magic system a bit easier to understand. They made the paradox, so the bad thing that happens when you cast magic, make a lot more sense. And they gave you a bit more of a reason to do things. Before, in first edition, it was very much like, all right, you're a mage. Our orders don't really like each other. We kind of just exist. Like, we don't have an antagonist. Whereas Ascension had some of the best antagonists of any role-playing game ever. Awakening was just... There were some bad guys, but it was kind of like day in the life. Awakening is still day in the life magic, but it is good day in the life magic. It really got better overall. I ran it as a LARP for a while. I quite liked it in second edition. So I'm gonna leave it there. Okay, Promethean. There, I'll be honest. I don't like Promethean. I think that it's a great idea for a one-shot. I actually ran one of the first games of Promethean outside of Onyx Path for a convention. They were doing like, hey, we'll send you the materials for convention play with quick starts. I ran it, and I actually really enjoyed playing it. But I've never. I guess I should put it as okay then. I don't know. Like, some of the ideas are kind of cool. I mean, you're basically playing a created person, like a golem or a Frankenstein, right? That kind of thing. Don't be pedantic in the comments. They're called Frankensteins. I think they're called Frankensteins. They were called in First Ed, I'm pretty sure. But Frankenstein's monsters. But if you're correcting me, then you're the real monster in that case. It was okay. You're basically like searching for humanity. I've never played a campaign of it, or a chronicle of it, I should say. And I think that is where my dislike of it comes from. I haven't seen its internal workings right now. I'm going to put it a dislike. I'm going to put it a dislike still. I don't think it's a bad game. I think that if it's what you want to play, that is good. Do it. I just don't think it's for me. Although the one-shots I ran were fun. So put it in okay or dislike. I think that they did a lot of things in second ed. I've only skimmed the book. That seemed pretty cool. Okay, now here's the one that broke the mold. Changeling the Lost. Changeling the Dreaming on Old World of Darkness was basically you were LARPers. You were people with like the souls of fairies and other fairy creatures, and you could see the world in other layers of reality. And be like, oh yes, that trash can is actually a dragon. Let's fight it. And to mundanes, you just look like you were basically tripping. Changeling the Lost basically turned it into you are a normal person that was kidnapped by fairies and turned into a sort of fairy in order to survive. And now you have escaped to find that your life has been taken over by a simulacrum that has been created by the Fae that took you and has been living your life and has your memories, but is made of sticks and stones, and only you can really see that. What the hell? that is an awesome idea. And that came out right around the time that like a lot of us were really big into like a lot of Neil Gaiman stuff, a lot of stuff that was very much that type of dark fantasy vibe. And man, it was cool. It was the first game that really broke the mold by getting out of the 5 different, you're 5 of these, you're 5 of these, and you could take some subtypes. Now there were 4 courts primarily, like autumn, spring, summer, winter, and there were a number of different types of seeming. That were, you know, you are this type of changeling, you are a beast, so, you know, you're like Beauty and the Beast, or, you know, you're a fairest, you're one of the fairest of all, and like all the subtypes there. It was really cool. It was an impressive change in the game. I really like it, and I think that it is a great game. And I've played it tabletop. I've played it as a LARP. It is one of the most flavorful role-playing experiences from the Chronicles of Darkness era, and I think that it is fantastic. Now, second edition changed a bunch of things, basically just like juggled terminology and kind of changed the focus on a couple things. They also made it so that changelings are a little doomed from the start in certain ways. I don't want to go into that because it might be a spoiler for your game. I'm going to leave it in a solid like to like a lot, though, because I don't want to flood my favorites. Okay, next up, Hunter the Vigil. You're playing a human. You hunt things. You know, hunting things, helping people, doing what Dad would want, Sammy. You're playing Supernatural, the role-playing game. Back when it was like season 1 through 5 Supernatural. And the fun of this is that it takes monster hunting, and it puts it in the hands of often very normal people. You are playing one of 3 tiers of hunter. Either tier 1, where you're just some guys. You know, you're some people with a car, maybe a bus pass, and you hunt monsters. Now, in this case, hunt doesn't mean kill. Hunt can mean that you go and just, like, you know, negotiate. You just look for monsters. You can do anything with this idea. It is the World of Darkness exists. The Chronicles of Darkness, World of Darkness exists. Go play around in it as a human and try not to die. But then, the reason that it's so different than the original, like playing just mortals, is that when you hit tier 2 and tier 3, you always have like a little boost. You have a little bit more willpower and some things you can do with it if you're a hunter. But it's when you are in the secondary tier, which is you're in compacts, which are small hunter organizations in your local area. Local hunter groups in your area want to meet you now. Ding. It is really cool. You might be a member of the union, which is basically a workers union, or a neighborhood watch type of thing, where everybody pays their dues around here, kid. I like using the union a lot in my games. The Ashwood Abbey, which is, oh yes, we're quite rich. We kill vampires and then snort the dust. Woohoo! They took them out of second edition for the most part because they are. A lot of things happened between first and second edition in the world, and not everybody wants to play the blood-sucking 1%, hunting the blood-sucking 0.01%, I guess. It's a really good game. At level 3, you belong to a conspiracy, which is something like, yes, our vast-reaching hunter organization has collected artifacts from the dawn of time. We will raid tombs and wear fedoras. Or maybe we are... I'm not even going to try to explain the ascending ones in this, because like, if you want a funny video about that, tag me below. Or maybe we are, you know, sons of the devil, where like everybody is descended from Lucifer. And his whole thing is that there's like, he's had like a bunch of offspring, and when their blood goes active, there are, I think, 666 of them on the earth, and they have like minor superpowers, like they can burn people and command demons, and they use their powers for good, even though they're bad. And then some of them just turn bad. Very much Devil May Cry in a lot of ways there. Pretty cool. Hunter the Vigil is a fantastic game because it's human. It's human, but it's still supernatural. You get a little touch of that supernatural power. You could be a priest or a layman in the Catholic Church who can suddenly, like, raise the dead. They don't come back perfect, but, you know, I would rather be in therapy and have to take, you know, my ADHD medication for the rest of my life than be dead. So, it's a really great game. Second edition just dropped, and I guarantee I'm going to run that on the channel. So if you want to watch that, let me know. I really want to run a Lucifuge game. Lucifuge are my favorite. They're the devil ones, if you couldn't tell. I love it. It's a great game. If you're not playing it right now, or if you're not going to go grab it, go grab it. It's great. Okay. Geist. I don't like Geist. Geist is like, Geist the Sin Eaters is, hey, you died, but on your way to death, you met with this ghost who was like, I am a ghost. I don't want to be a ghost, really. And you basically became Ghost Rider, kind of. It's complicated. You basically gain, like, ghost powers that only really affect... Some of them affect more than ghosts, but you become like a bridge between the living and the dead, and you make this deal with a spirit that is kind of like if you take a death and distill it or boil it down to like a nice roux, and it's like, oh yes, it's what if drowning were like a brown sauce, so like the distilled drowning victim, I am the captain with a hook hand. I don't know. It's aight. It's honestly aight. The powers are pretty cool. I ran one of the early adventures for it where you are hunting down a guy who has the gun from the Son of Sam, and that was a pretty fun game, but I just can't conceptually get behind it. I like the idea of going through like Avernus Gates. I think that's what they're called. No, it's not Avernus Gates. That's something completely different. But through gates that take you to the underworld and having to deal with more like ancient chthonic beings that follow rules of their own, kind of like in Pan's Labyrinth almost, like a more dead version of that Fey underworld, but also a little bit of Beetlejuice in it. Like if it had focused a little more on that, or if I guess maybe that could be a misreading by me that the game doesn't focus more on that. I just found that first edition was way overpowered. You could do incredible things as a Sin Eater that you could not do as most other splats in that edition. And it was just a weird game. And also, Book of the Dead, the last book that they came out with, they hired like a digital editor to edit, and the thing was just riddled with typos. It was right at the end of White Wolf's ability to do their... it was at the end of Onyx Path under CC... No, this was under... Yeah, this is before Onyx Path. Then Onyx Path got a hold of it, and it's okay now. It's good. I actually really want to run like a game that's kind of like Persona 5, but it's with you're a Sin Eater. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say this. I hate mummies. I hate them. They're dumb. They were dumb, and that's why they got eaten by the Victorians. Look it up. I'm not kidding. However, I really liked what they did with it in Chronicles of Darkness. You know what? I'm gonna drop it to an okay because I don't think it has legs as a chronicle. I think if you're looking for like a couple short run games, Mummy's great. Because the basic premise is that you are an ancient being that is you got mummified and you have mummy powers now. It's a mummy game. The best part of the system though is most of these games you're like, oh, I'm a little vampire. I got my fangs and I can lift 50 pounds. And then over time you're like, I am a vampire. I have 4 fangs now. And I can lift 500 pounds and can sway the hearts of thousands. And I drink blood, kind of like in Legacy of Kain, where I go, and it kind of shoots at me. You build your power over time. And that was pretty cool. It's pretty standard. Pretty boring after a while, actually, now that I think about it. And then you get Mummy the Cursed, where they're like, I want to see the developer walk into the room for them and be like, hey guys. What if we started at max power? What? But that would defy our design ethos until now. Yeah. But hear me out. What if, fuck it. And then that's what they went with. You wake up from like, I have to, your mummy's aliving it. And suddenly you come back and your power stat, like your supernatural power, is at 10. You are supercharged. You wake up, you start the game as a Super Saiyan on Ultra Instinct, and then you get sleepy. And this is why I don't think that it has long legs as a campaign or a chronicle. I'm running too much D&D. Sorry, guys. As a chronicle, because you depower over time. Now, a smart storyteller can like try to run like eras of play. You know, I think that's pretty cool. I don't think that it has as much legs. That's why I'm putting it in okay. But that mechanic of you start off super powered and you slowly lose your power over time as you dwindle back and have to go back to sleep. That's how I feel every morning when I wake up. So I have to say I love that. If there was a way to get these mummies some coffee so that they can stay up longer, it probably is in the rule book at me. But it's a really cool idea. I'm going to say it's just okay though, because I don't like mummies. Developers though, whoever came up with that idea, you guys are so cool, and I probably already know you, and tell me so that I can apologize for not liking mummies. Okay, only got 3 more, and a 4th one that I have a surprise for. All right, here's the deal. Demon the Fallen was a game in Old World of Darkness where you played a fallen angel that was incorporated into a human body, and the end of the world was coming, and Lucifer was around, and was like, kind of doing that Cain thing where he went out for smokes and then never came back, but then started the Inquisition. It's a long story. I wonder how many other stories go like that, like your dad runs off and starts the Inquisition. Probably a few. And then once again, a developer showed up in the Onyx Path forums or wherever they're doing this, since they don't have an office anymore, and was like, hey guys. You know how the old Demon the Fallen was like all about being an angel? And they're like, yeah, we know. Yeah, we need to put out a demon game. People are clamoring for it. They really love that old one. All right, guys. Well, what about this? What if you're a robot? And they were like, a robot? Yeah, man, like what if... So we have the God Machine, right? Which is this big machine that's a god, but also an evil machine. Well, what if you were like a Terminator? Like a magic Terminator who went back in time to kill someone. And then you were like, oh man, this kid's actually kind of cool. I don't want to shoot him. And then suddenly, man, like your program went all haywire and the system was like, point, must destroy. And you were like, oh man, I'm going to have to survive by basically becoming a permanent fixture in this reality by stealing the identity, which is not an actual identity, but is literally like a metaphysical construct where I steal what makes you a person and I wrap myself in it, and then we enter an espionage game of Cold War where it's like Russia versus the US during the Cold War, or like that show The Americans, but it's you against the God Machine and all of the agents, and you're doing these espionage actions where you're trying to bring the God Machine down or usurp its power for yourself to sustain your own life while trying to live the lives that you have stolen, which you can have multiple of, but which wear down as a stat. So, like, the worse it gets, the more you originally are Bob Johnson, who is an accountant, but the more damage that your cover takes, the more that you become this Bob Johnson becomes just Bob or Mr. Johnson, because there are details of his life that just vanish as his cover goes away, because his wife no longer exists, and that shirt, he wears that same shirt every day. You can't change the shirt. It has the same mustard stain. Is he a real person, or is this just a cover? Yeah. That's the game. It's awesome. It's awesome. And if you had ever told me that all of the other games in the World of Darkness, you're like, all right, vampires, werewolves, changelings. It's a little bit of a rough start there. Hunter the Reckoning was, maybe you're a holy hand grenade, and then Hunter the Vigil's like, maybe you have a holy hand grenade. There's still like steps where you go between them. Wraith, you were like, you're a ghost, and Sin Eater, you're like, maybe you ate a ghost. Mummy, you're a mummy. You're jerky both ways. And then they go to... I could have made an awful joke about mages there, and I didn't, and I did that for you, Drew, at Occultist Anonymous. Maybe you're a mage, and then maybe you're an Atlantis fanboy. That's the light version. Maybe there's no game line that really correlates to Promethean. But so we get to Demon. It's like, maybe you're a fallen angel, and maybe it's a spy thriller. Who thought that up? were you high, and can I have some? Because that is great. I love you, whoever you are, and I love your game. And I love that it plays with meta narrative. There are powers in that game where, I mean, sorry to drop a combat power rather than anything else, but this is the one that always sticks in my head. There's one called Merciless Gunman, which is literally functions like this. You walk into a scene, you're basically a Chow Yun Fat character. You look around the room, there are about 20 guys with guns. They're all Triad members who are like, we're going to get you. They all draw their guns, and you're like, that's all right. I've got enough bullets for all of you. You make a roll. If those characters do not have names, as in if your storyteller has not come up with a name and a backstory for each of them, which if your storyteller's doing it right, they probably haven't, because who cares about a goon's backstory? You always add that in after the fact to make a character feel bad, right? You kill your successes in people in one shot. You're just like, bam, 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 like an action movie character. That is amazing. And basically that's like, oh, if so it was, Rico, the antagonist with, who stole your girlfriend, and I don't know, River City Ransom, go back to it. Like, obviously you can't kill him with that, but you can kill all of his henchmen. Because nobody wants to play a game where you spend the entire game fighting the henchmen. It's not fun. I've done it. You want to use them as stepping stones to increase the narrative tension toward the climax, which usually involves fighting the villain. And all of their powers are like that. They're cheats. They're hacks in reality. It's like, oh, I have good leverage, so I can throw this dumpster so long as it's already moving before I try to grab it. It's cool. It is the best game that I never saw coming, and I think you should play it right now. I think it's better. I think it's now in this exact moment. I think it is probably the most original and creative and coolest game that Onyx Path has ever put out, and I don't think it got nearly enough love. So go check it out, please. Do I think that it deserves a second edition? It was kind of on the cusp, so it didn't really have a second edition. It kind of is the first second edition book in many ways. Mummy Mummy had a second edition. But anyway, I think the Demon deserves a second chance for everybody. Please, Rich Thomas, if you're watching this video, which you're not, or Travis, or anybody else at Onyx Path, make a second edition Demon book and hire me to write part of it, please. Or run it. I don't care. Just, let's do it. It's so good. Okay, Beast the Primordial. What if fear was a person and also a sociopath? It's like bad. Not bad. So as far as I understand, the book had like kind of a troubled development cycle that like they changed developers a couple of times, and I'm listed in the credits of one of those books as a playtester. I ran it. I did a total party kill in that game. I rarely TPK if you watch my games. And I'm not sure how much I can say because I think I signed an NDA for that first edition. I will say it is vastly dissimilar. You can find this on the forums. It was originally much more evil, and became a bit more neutral. They kind of watered down the premise. You're kind of like Dexter in the original. Like you were like not a serial killer necessarily, but you stalked people and preyed on their fears. The problem is that the idea as just an idea is great, but the moment that you take a step outside of the idea and go, oh, so you are a serial predator who terrorizes people and is a sociopath and is basically that guy who used to sit at the back of your class, it might be you, I don't know, in junior high, and was like, I'm a monster, don't come near me, baby, and then would like write poetry. God, that was probably me. I'm sorry if that was me, if I was that person to you. Playing Sociopath, the role-playing game, Sociopath Protagonist, the role-playing game, obviously didn't sit well with a lot of people. I think that it is a lot of the things that were taken out between release and the version that I played, I kind of miss them, power-wise and theme-wise. It just... I don't like what it does to the world of Darkness as a whole, though. I think that introducing beasts as these primordial reflections of fears given form that were like kind of descended potentially from like the first monsters, I think it kind of gives the world some backstory that I don't like. It implies a lot of things, and it kind of implies that a lot of the other supernatural creatures are like hand-me-downs. And it also just is a weird game. I'm not saying it's a bad game, and I think the people who worked on it did a great job, as always. I will never naysay like a game unless it's actually bad. I don't think it's bad. I just don't like it. I could not come up with good plots for it. The one shot I ran was the characters were in the Jersey Pine Barrens, and one of their members of their whatever their party is called, their cell, their nightmare group, got kidnapped. They went to go this is I'm remembering the one thing I really like about Beast, and I'm gonna leave it on hate because I need something to be down there. Sorry, Beast. Beast has the best antagonist for a game that I dislike that much. So you have beasts, and then you have hunters. When you gain power, you create your own Gastons. And the way that heroes work, which is what they're called, they're not hunters, they're heroes. Right? The villains of your game are heroes. They gain supernatural abilities specifically to kick your ass, including singing a song to get an entire group of French peasants to march into your lair with pitchforks and torches. That's right. I want that. I want that so much. And it's basically they're super hunters. The best thing about heroes in this game is that heroes are crazy. Like, certifiably, and I don't mean that as in the way that it can be misconstrued as like a pejorative for anyone with mental illness. I mean, these are crazed individuals. They are obsessed with your destruction at almost comic book levels. They cannot think of anything else but destroying you. And, you know, there's a monster in a castle. Let's go grab some shotguns and go kill him. You know, load your guns, grab an axe, and you probably should bring flasks, and we should go burn the places to the ground. I kind of want to sing the entire song, but I'm not going to subject you to that. They're so cool. God damn it, I'm going to have to move it to dislike. That idea is so good, it bumped it up a category. God damn it. All right, finally, Renegade. The Deviants, or Deviant the Renegades. Deviant the Renegades. Brand new game that just came out. I just got my book in the mail. And I have only skimmed the book. We're actually planning to run a short run of that here on Dork Tales if you like it. I am going to put this as okay. And I'm going to put it as okay for one reason. I haven't read it. Not well enough to say. I want to put it in like because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff here. The basic premise is that science or magic or something turned you into a monster. You're like a weird half monster. You know, like the Hulk or the Guyver, if you've watched the old Guyver, the Mark Hamill version of the Guyver in particular. You are like Prototype, the video game Prototype. You are a bioweapon. And yeah, you're on the run, play the Incredible Hulk lonely man theme, and you are on the run, and the level of your powers dictates the level of the offensive following you. That is super cool. That is really cool. I'm really looking forward to reading it. But until then, I'm going to have to put it as okay. There is one final category I want to say, and that's they released a book series called Dark Eras. Dark Eras is going to be my surprise boost because Dark Eras is basically what if in history? What if monsters in history? I'm going to use the Mortal Skull for that because we ran a bunch of Dark Eras on the channel, and they're basically just like little historical epochs where you drop people into. We've done the Age of Piracy, for example. What if vampires, but pirates? I dig it. I dig it. They give you just enough tools to run inside of a historic setting. I really want to run Falling Blossoms, I think it is, which is Hunter the Vigil in Meiji Restoration or just like Bakahatsu, Japan, where you're playing hunters. And there are vampires and monsters everywhere kind of influencing things. And it's up to you as members of the Shinsengumi, like the guys you always see in the animes with the blue coats, basically like samurai cops, to go stop monsters. I want to play that so bad. I want to play that so bad. It looks so cool. And running in historical eras is phenomenal. Go check some out. We have some Let's Plays that we did of that for Onyx PathCon. They're in our Chronicles of Darkness and World of Darkness playlist. So yeah, that's my list of World of Darkness, Chronicles of Darkness, if you're a newbie, games, and I really like these. I guess I like everything. I don't hate anything. I kind of hate Beast a little, but Heroes, man, they pull it up. Heroes. So yeah, that's gonna be my opinions here. Feel free to disagree, agree, or leave some comments below. Let me tell me what you think. And if you do this yourself, post it in the Discord. I want to see what you think. And I challenge you, if you are a content creator who likes Chronicles of Darkness games or tabletop games in general and knows of these games, do one of these tiers yourself. At me, and let's see how much we can get this to spread. I want to thank Corbin for asking me to do this, because this was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about this. So I'm going on vacation now. Literally, I'm walking out the door to go on vacation. I will do a quick edit of this while I am relaxing, and I will have this posted soon. So thanks, Corbin, and I look forward to seeing what Occultist Anonymous has to say about this. All right, see you later, dorks. I guess in about a week. Bye!